that are on the call with me that will speak throughout, that will answer specific things that we have to talk about for hosting a regional tournament. I'll cover the different resources that we will provide you to host your tournament. We'll talk about just some basic things that apply to all of the regional host sites. And then we'll also go into wrap up with talking about the national tournament. All in all, I think it'll probably take about 40 minutes or so for me to get through all of this. If you have folks that weren't unable to be on the webinar live today, we also will be taping this, and it will go online. It will be sent out to all host sites after this. Like I said, my name is Megan. I am the Director of Campus Recreation at Loyola University in Chicago. I also serve as the Basketball Work Team Chair. This is my first year of a 2-year term. Just so you guys are aware of folks that work within the Championship Series, this is the entire Championship Series lead team up here on the screen now. On the call as well, in case they need to chime in on any questions, is Valerie McCutcheon and then Keely Naughton. They both work out of the NIRSA National Headquarters. Also on the call, we have our executive board of the Championship Series, Brooke Turner, who is the chair, O.C. Wheatfall, who works directly with me with the sports section, and then Sarah Fain, who works as well with the Championship Series. To the right of the screen is all the different chairs that are working with the Championship Series. On the call today will be Ashley Lax. She'll be talking about club basketball a little bit, and she also will be talking a little bit about our officials. And then Scott Flickinger will be on the call later on. He'll talk about brand management with you. And then April Flint was supposed to be on the call for assessment. She had to step out, and I will be covering her section. But some of these other folks also, they do a lot for the Championship Series, so we wanted to make sure you're aware of what they do. On this screen is our basketball work team. This is a group of people who apply to help out with all aspects of basketball. So we do monthly phone calls to be able to work through different policies and procedures that pertain to basketball. Also, they help edit this webinar, for example. They help come up with policies, procedures, and they also help select our different sites. So instead of going through all the names, I just put them on the screen here for you so you can see them. They are all on their 1-year term, so they will be on the work team through the end of May, and then they will turn over at the end of this year. And just a reminder for all of you who maybe aren't aware of the other regional tournaments that we have going on, listed on the screen here, this information also comes directly from NIRSA's website. So you're able to go on there and get all this information if you need it. But we do have in Region 1, Boston University will be hosting, University of Maryland and University of Massachusetts Amherst all will host for that region. In Region 2, we will have Georgia Tech and the University of Florida. And then for Region 3, we will have the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, and then Western Michigan University. And listed on all those are also some contact information as well as the dates that they will be hosting. So for the most part, and you'll see in the next slide as well, we do have a couple regions that are hosting at the same time, but no region has a tournament in the same region on the same weekend. And then finishing out for the rest of the regionals, in Region 4 is the University of Houston, and then Region 5 we have the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. And then lastly for Region 6, hosting this year will be UCLA and then the University of Oregon. Now I'm going to go through some just different resources that are available to you as a host site. So a lot of these are pre-existing and have been on the website for some time. They do get updated yearly. So the first one is the NIRSA Championship Series Regional Tournament Operations Manual. That's a great resource for you to see how all of our regionals are hosted, both from flag football to basketball. It has all updated eligibility. It has budget templates. It has a copy of rules. It has several things in there that are great for you to use as a resource when you're looking to host. So I know several of our schools have hosted for many years. It's still good to check on this as we do update it on a yearly basis. Also, two other great resources is just the NIRSA site in general, and then also specifically the Championship Series website, which is listed on the bottom of this slide. That website has everything up to date as pertains to the Championship Series. Like, so that is updated really frequently, so I recommend you checking it out as you're getting everything ready to host. There's lots of up-to-date information on there. Tournament liaison. So another reason I have the work team on this phone call is that many of them serve as liaisons for your host site. Actually, all of them serve as liaisons. So by now, you should have already been contacted by your host site liaison. They're all listed here on the website. I'm sorry, on the webinar. They're there to really be your one-on-one resource. They're there to give you attention and to make sure that you have all the information you need. So when they're on the call today, they're hearing the same stuff that you are, so they'll have the same information, but they also are on additional phone calls behind the scenes, knowing all the ins and outs on how to run a tournament. So they're a really great resource. They will already touch out to you a couple weeks ago, but they also will follow up with you again at the conclusion of this call. And then as we get closer to your tournament host date, they will follow up to you to make sure you have everything that you need. So, and again, this kind of lists out who has where. It also reminds you who has the 2-year bids for each region and who will follow up with a 1-year bid for next year. So if you haven't heard from them, please let me know. But they're really a great resource. You get contacted from a lot of people to run a tournament, so it's really nice to have one person who you know you can always go to. If they don't know the answer, they're really good at finding the way to get the answer. Outside of your liaisons, you're more than welcome to contact me with questions you might have. By no means am I the end-all be-all of regional basketball or national basketball or any of those things, but I am able to find the answer to questions that are needed. And also, two other great resources are Valerie and Keely out of the national office. They both work full-time in the championship series, so they do a great job making sure information is distributed out, and also they have answers to a lot of questions that some of us might not. So I definitely recommend you reaching out to them as well, and their contact information is also on the website. And just some other things, what we found over the years of hosting is that from time to time you will get contacted by other groups. Hosting a regional, it has a lot of moving parts to it. You have your own moving parts within your own organization, your own school, but also the championship series has a lot of different working parts. So I wanted just to make sure all of you knew from time to time you might get reached out to beyond your liaison. That will happen when we talk about brand management, and all of these I'll go into a lot more detail here when we get in more later slides. You also will be reached out about assessment. The Student Professional Development Committee will reach out to you as pertains to your officials. We will talk about Unified Division a little bit later. The Ohio State tournament staff will also be in touch with you once your tournament ends, because obviously a lot of your teams will be looking on to filter there, and your officials will filter on there next. But a lot of folks might reach out to you. We're going to do our best as a championship series to be as consistent, as concise as we can be with you. So if you're getting multiple requests and multiple emails and phone calls, that you know who you're talking to and why. So after we get through this season of tournaments, we're going to kind of reassess who reaches out when. So if you have any feedback on that, feel free to let us know after. Okay, moving on to the planning phases of your tournament. Most of you have done a lot of this stuff already, particularly those of you who have hosted before. In order to be able to even get approved to have a site, you would have already had to let us know that you had enough courts. But just friendly reminders that you have your facility all ready to go. Everything is reserved that you need. The courts have already been blocked out, that you've posted signage that you need to post, your websites are updated, that you're going to have court closures, that you've already secured meeting spaces. All sites are expected to host an officials clinic, that you already have that you have a space where you're going to host your meals, that you have a film room if you're going to be filming officials. All of those different facility sites should already be taken care of or should be planned here soon. Same thing with parking. That's always a nightmare on almost every campus, so making sure that you already have that set as we get closer to your tournament dates. You are able to use a website if you have one. I know many of you house your tournament out of your pre-existing campus recreation website. That's completely fine. Make sure that we have that on our end, so we also can link that to the website. On there, you should have all correct dates and deadlines. The registration forms were already sent to you a couple weeks ago. Those should also be housed on the website so teams can see those as well. So just make sure that's up to date, as we want people to visit your websites to get all accurate information. In your own individual website, that's on each host site to update anything you want to put on there outside of what's required by NIRSA. By now, most of you probably have already reserved your host hotels for both your staff and if you're going to have any offerings for teams as well. So just a reminder there. If you have not contacted your Visitor Bureau or Sports Commission, we just recommend that to you so you can find other ways to maybe have additional sources of income. A lot of visitor bureaus are willing to sponsor. They're willing to give you coupons for food. They're willing to give you A lot of schools give grab bags out. They give, where they put all the host site information in there. They put it in a bag that's from their city. Also, they often put tourist information and those sorts of things. So that is a great resource to use as well. And that kind of goes along the same line with sponsorships. If you are looking to secure them, you are allowed to do so. We do ask that you run them through NIRSA with any issues that you might have with sponsorships that you have. And all of you might have different ones based off of your location. Selection of your tournament staff. Applications for regional staff closed a few weeks ago. So by now, all of you should have received both the director applications and the regional staff applications. If you've not, please let either myself, Keely, or Val know. One big thing to pick out for you as pertains to staff is that you are required to select your staff from those who applied. So if you had somebody who did not apply, they would not be eligible. We really want to reinforce that folks are using the application tool to apply. We want to make sure it's fair and consistent amongst all regions. We did use a new format this year, the Google Forms. I think that made it much easier for people to apply from their phones and from their tablets and those sorts of things. And also it just made it consistent amongst all. So that was something brand new this year. The positions that each regional site should first be your director positions. All are allowed to have a director of officials and an all tournament and a director of competition. That should have already been selected, and then you should use those to help select the remainder of your staff. So ideally, they would be selected first, then they would be on calls with you as you go through the rest of your applicants. The other committees that you'll have underneath them are officials. Some schools have officials committees, some have officials and official subcommittees, meaning you have grad assistants and undergrads. That's up to the discretion of your site. Same with all tournament, you're allowed to select if you want to have grad assistants and full-time staff, or if you're going to have one or the other. And then a little bit of a change for this year was the operations committee. We actually took that out of the application. We were finding many sites were not using an operations committee. However, your site is allowed to. So if you have maybe an excess of staff and you have a need for them at your host site, you are allowed to have an operations committee. You would be able to select that how you want to. So you could select your own chair for that if you'd like, and some host sites have let us know they will have an operations chair. That is up to your individual site as well. And then just a friendly reminder as you're selecting your staff, please take care of your own region first. There are a lot of folks who are interested. We get in the hundreds of applicants for these, so we really want to try to take care of your own region first if you can. And also make sure you're looking at diversity of who you're selecting, people from different schools, people with different skill sets, as we make sure we have the fairest and most diverse staff possible. Okay, registration forms. So this is nothing new. These are the same forms that have been around for quite some time. You've already received a copy of these. They're pretty similar to what we've used every year, but these are all forms that are required by NIRSA. They have to be completed in order for you to be able to run your tournament. The first is the registration form. That's how teams sign up. The second is the accident waiver and release of liability. Every single participant must fill that out. The player certification form, that's the form that goes through the registrar's office. It also can be signed off if you are allowing for club and intramural coordinators to sign off on that to verify that they're in school and meet the rest of our eligibility requirements. And then lastly, the code of conduct. So that's been added in as well. That is to be signed by everybody. So that's both participants, staff, and officials. That's located on the website, and also you've been sent a copy of that. And that's just agreeing that you're going to follow the NIRSA Championships Code of Conduct. If your school likes to have additional forms, maybe you're selling shirts and you ask how many people will look to buy, or other things that you think are important to go out, you are allowed to add forms as long as you still complete the NIRSA required forms. Once the tournament ends, you hang on to those forms. If we need them for any reason, we'll reach out to you. And then just a note that NIRSA liability insurance will be sent to you prior to your tournament, so that will come from the national headquarters. This is just general liability insurance. Each participant must still have insurance. Just a reminder on that, that everybody has to have insurance in order to be able to participate. Another resource that we recommend our host sites using is IMLeagues. Several of you use this already to run your leagues on campus. This is not a requirement of the championship series, more of just a recommendation. So you're able to use this in order to run the tournament if you'd like. So you can set up your own page. You actually can collect payment through that if you'd like. You can do the electronic waiver, but you still must require the physical paper copy at registration. It's nice, though. You can enter all of your emails and IDs can go in there. You can keep statistics really easily this way. It's really easy to keep results this way. Brooke will talk about that a little bit later when we get to sending results on the national tournament. But it does keep things all in one place. Last year, I want to say the majority of the regionals did use IMLeagues, so it does make things considerably easy. If you have not used it and you have some questions about what you need to do to get it going, reach out to your liaison and to me, and we can follow up with you and get that set up for you. But it is a really great resource, especially if you're trying to go paper-free in some ways and use tablets and those sorts of things. It's a really great resource. Kind of along the same lines, talking about rosters. So once all those forms we talked about a second ago have been turned in, each school will have their own roster. So what I mean by the slide when it says every tournament can do what they need to do, what I mean is if a team shows up to the tournament and registration and they have added somebody in, you still need to verify that person has been approved by the school's registrar's office. So if you're going to allow something outside of like a school field, then you need to verify with either their campus rec professional there that that person is in fact meeting our eligibility standards. So each school does that. Once you get to the tournament site, you handle those sorts of issues that might come up. We also recommend that all of you mandate that that participants use school IDs. If you bend on that rule, we still recommend and mandate that you do use photo IDs. So it's your choice if you're going to allow people to use driver's license and those sorts of things at your own host site, but we certainly recommend that they use the school one, and again, that they have to use some form of photo ID to play at any time. And now to talk a little bit about some other stuff, I'm going to have OC jump on, and he's going to talk a little bit about some Champ Series specific stuff.
Howdy, everyone. I'm just going to go over this as quickly and concise as possible, but I will say I would encourage everyone to visit the NIRSA website and look up the player eligibility requirements, because I know there's a lot of assumptions out there. And so while I'll hit on some high points, please do yourself a favor and go back and actually read over the stuff just in case something's unclear. But for starters, every participant must be enrolled either as an undergraduate or a graduate student, and that has to come from the registrar's office. For undergraduates, they have to be enrolled at least for half-time, their requirement at their university, and then graduates must be taking a minimum of 6 credit hours. In addition to that, they must be enrolled for 45 days prior to the start of that contest. So for someone who just happened to drop down at the last minute, that's not going to work. In addition to that, we also have our certain restrictions with 6 years of consecutive appearances. They cannot be listed on the varsity roster or a squad list. We kind of use those interchangeably sometimes because we've seen in the past people go by squad list, and that's only for this current season. So from previous years, they can, but there's a different process we go through that. And then each team is only allowed 1 former varsity basketball player. A couple other things, there are some instances where if a player is graduating the term of the NIRSA Championship Series event and that drops them below that minimum hours because they only need those 1 or 2 classes to graduate, then they must get a letter from the registrar stating that the player will be graduating in that same term, and that needs to be submitted with their registration materials. I know some folks are on quarters, so that works a little differently. For the quarter system, they have to be at that status for that current quarter and the following quarter as well. For eligibility issues, all appeals must go through the standards work team. On the website, it lists that you must email Valerie McCutcheon, and her email is listed there. And then once she gets it, she will forward it on to the standard work team. Any sanctions that are passed down or been levied on you, in order to appeal those, you must do it within 10 days of the appeal. And then once the work team gets it, they'll respond within 10 days. But any eligibility issues that someone wants to appeal, those need to be done 30 days out. So remind your players, if they have an issue, they send you an email about someone that potentially played or wants to play, that they need to contact Val within 30 days before the event to give her adequate time to go through the vetting process for that. Next, here's our transgender policy. It's pretty self-explanatory. We like to be inclusive, and so essentially transgender participants are eligible to play based on their expressed gender identity, so long as they comply with all player eligibility guidelines. And I know a lot of our campuses make people identify, but some folks may not identify what they actually gave to the university, so we want to go with what they identify with. So in saying that, a person's gender identity will be applied when there are gender-specific rules or player ratio requirements for co-rec divisions. Transgender individuals may play on the team that best matches their gender identity. Some information for you that I think is helpful is the campus official who approves the team entry on the roster certification form should verify the gender indicated on the form is best matched with the participant's self-identification. And then if there is an issue, we understand that for some people, coming to know their gender identity is not something that happens in an instant, and it's a complex process. So we want to definitely be sympathetic to that issue, and so we encourage transgender participants to communicate directly to you. And if they don't feel comfortable communicating to you, they can definitely contact the NIRSA office, and essentially Val will communicate to you how you should go about proceeding in that manner. A lot of you have already received the MOUs, and all of you have. They came from Keeley a while back, but just a couple things to make you all aware of during your actual event. For one thing, it is highly encouraged that you pay the entry fee for your men's and women's divisional winners at the tournament. It's $375, so please try to budget for that. Like I said, it's not required, but we would also like for you to think about the club divisions if you are offering that division at your tournament, and Ashley will touch a little bit more on that. The logos and the different markups and marketing materials, those have been sent by Keeley to you as well. Please make sure to use those brandings. We want to be consistent across the board with our messages, especially on social media, and Flick will hit on these a little bit later too. But we want to be consistent with that message and branding, especially when it comes to the championship series. So he'll talk about the different things we don't want you doing, but like I said, if you use the things that were sent to you, you'll pretty much be safe. As far as any forms that you use, try to include those logos on them too and keep them the same. And then Keeley will be sending you your championship banners. Those will come to you the week of your event. Please display those banners and get the photos that we ask of you of those required banners with the champions and some with the staff as well. And then the last thing, and I think it's one of the most important things, before your championship events, please read the NIRSA sportsmanship statement prior to those games. That's located on the website too, and it's in that same player appeals section that you can look that up. One thing we changed this year, I know Megan touched on this, is there was a lot of people pulling at you for different types of information. We tried to streamline this process, and one way we've done that is to create a Google Doc. And on that Google Doc, you will now be asked to submit all the different things post-event from your tournament, such as your list of winners and runner-up and scores, all tournament players, all tournament officials. We want your top 6 in order, and Ashley will touch more on that. And then ensure you have email addresses for all players and staff, because when we do some assessment information, it's good to have that information readily available for us. And then also you're going to email that contact information for teams as well, so that if we need to get in touch with those folks we have. And once again, this will all be done on the Google Doc that will be sent to you, more than likely from Keeley, to get that information filled in. This way you don't have to fill it out multiple times from different people. And I also ask that you do it in a timely manner. I understand right after the tournament people are trying to just catch their breath, but possibly that next week, if you're doing a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tilt, get it into us while it's fresh on your mind and just be done with it. This way we can scratch you off the list as having fulfilled this part of the MOU. And once again, I talked about this, the last thing, within 10 days, this post-event analysis needs to be sent to the headquarters. We want the total number of teams, staff, officials, and spectators, tournament results, your post-event budget and sponsorship information, And the photo documentation, we just asked for a couple different photos, one of the event, the officials and the winning teams, and then a couple photos with your sponsorship battle, with your banners, and then some event photos to be used for publication. And then you can email all the photos to Keely Naughton. Once again, I included her email on here for you as well. But all this information, you'll get a link from NIRSA in order to fill all this information out.
Great. Thank you, OC. And some of this OC touched on a little bit, but just to follow up on your budget. So part of your application process, you were to submit a tentative budget. So many of you that have hosted previously just turned in your year prior and changed some things around. But that is your responsibility as a host site to track your own budget. So throughout the process of when you submitted the application bid, through now when you're starting to maybe purchase some things, through next semester when you start purchasing food and everything else, that's your responsibility to track it. And then you'll be required to submit that after the fact, like OC said. That'll be submitted all together with that. So we recommend you keeping a good track on that, just so if you host year in, year out, you can kind of see what you're doing. It'll help yourself out with those things as well. A couple things on the budget. If you use on-campus student volunteers, so maybe you use your intramural sport officials to be scorekeepers on the table, you are allowed to do that, but that should come from your individual campus rec budget, not from the tournament budget. So if you do denote that in your budget you submit to NIRSA, just make sure you take that line item out of the total. If that's how you want to track it, that's fine, but that actual amount of money should come directly from your campus recreation budget for student staffing. Just some other things that have changed a bit, just so you're aware of them. A lot of these costs become optional in the last couple of years, but highly recommended. So once you select your officials, you are allowed to provide a stipend for them. Again, not required, but highly recommended that you do that. And that's just a way to help our officials get to the national tournament. Same thing with entry fees to nationals if you want to select another division. So maybe you have a club in a unified division and you want to help pay for those. That would be your choice. Or maybe you want to pay for the second place team. That would be at the selection of each individual host site. Same thing with travel stipends. That is no longer a requirement but a recommendation if you're able to provide any kind of assistance to host sites. That would come from your own individual budget. If you have any questions about that, please let myself or headquarters know, and we can walk you through some of the answers with that as well. Staff apparel is similar. It is up to each host site if they'd like to provide staff apparel for those that are working their tournaments. So some schools do that. A lot of schools have also just gone to wearing school polos all 3 days. That's obviously a cheap way to be able to get through it. You're all looking somewhat uniform. You're still in something professional looking. But that is up to each site. Some host sites have found sponsors that have helped pay for that. So maybe they have a local sporting goods store that helped them out with a good deal on polos, and they're able to provide those as well. But you will not get any apparel directly from headquarters. Everything would come from your own host site if you are opting to have that. In terms of the tournament structure itself, this is pretty similar to what it's been for the last several years, is you should be doing a pool play right into a single elimination tournament. We ask that all teams receive at least 2 games. You might decide to up that to 3 games, but 2 is the minimum that we are asking you to do. You are required to have a male and female division, and you have the choice of leaving it as an open division and to having 1 male and 1 female winner. That is the requirement. Beyond that, you are allowed to have a club division. And I'll let Ashley Lax, if you don't mind jumping in and talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, not a problem. So my name is Ashley Lax, and I serve as the club basketball committee chair. In terms of club basketball and involvement in regional sites, included in the conference dues for club basketball is entry into 1 NIRSA regional of the club's choice. So we have 10 women's Midwest teams, 5 men's Southwest teams, and 4 women's South teams that potentially will be entering your regional based on their selection with their dues. So we are going to compile that list and email the host sites, the clubs that are intending to participate in their regional. From there, NIRSA will send payment for each of the clubs to you. The clubs will be responsible for all of the paperwork and registration materials. NIRSA will take care of the price, and then from there it is up to you whether you decide to make a club-specific division or whether they play with the rest of the teams in your tournament. If you decide to host a club-specific division, again, it can be all club teams, not just club teams in the conference. However you decide to organize their competition, they just need 2 games once they get to the regional. You don't have to provide a separate bracket, but we will be getting those team names out to you relatively shortly.
Perfect, thank you. Outside of that, you are also able to elect to have a unified division. Your host site liaison likely has already reached out to you to ask if you are planning to have that. If you do decide to have a unified division, more information will come soon. That gets directed through North American Special Olympics, so they help a lot with that facilitation. NIRSA does do some facilitation with that as well, but a lot of it comes directly from them. So I think 3 or 4 of the sites you have let us know that you would love to try to offer one. So we certainly encourage that. If you're a school that does want to do that, please make sure you let your liaison know so we can get you more information for that here in the next couple weeks. The unified division is part of the national tournament, and it actually will be expanded upon this year. So last year we had a smaller number of teams, and this year it'll be slightly larger. So that's something that's slowly but surely growing amongst the championship series. So if any questions you have on that, let your liaison or myself know, and we'll get you more information there. Other parts of the tournament structure, obviously you're going to end up with a championship game. We ask that when you do the championship game, you kind of treat it as a special event. You do announcing for starting lineups and play the national anthem if you're able to. So, and most of the host sites do as is. So again, you try to get down to those last 2 games and make really a nice experience for the participants. In terms of some more logistics, we do ask that you follow NFHS rules with some timing adaptations, those high school rules. Most of you will receive a copy of that. It's pretty the same ones we've used year in and year out. We ask that you have athletic trainers there, and again, each school is up to find their own athletic trainers. We ask that each table has a possession arrow to help the officials out as well. Tablets are optional. A lot of schools that use IMLeagues have started to use iPads and different tablets in order to keep stats. Usually the all-tournament committee might decide that. It's much easier to keep live stats that way. It's up to each host site if they want to do that or not. Same with if you decide you want to keep score that way, if you want to do check-in that way. It really depends a lot if you're using IMLeagues or not. But certainly a recommendation, but not a requirement that you use various tablets. And in terms of when you're planning the tournament itself, we ask that you be considerate of staff's travel times. Also, make sure staff know that when they sign up to work a tournament, they're required to work the whole tournament, that they should be there from start to finish, if at all possible. But in terms of when you actually schedule out the championship games, if you have the ability to stagger the start times, maybe you have a secondary gem where one game could be run out of while the other one's going on the court. Any of those things are just kind of helpful tips to think of as you get planning. And then April Flint is our assessment chair. So she had to step out. She originally was planning to be on the call, so I'm going to do my best to go through this with you. But the championship series does have an entire assessment work team. So they're really trying to be unified and consistent about how they do assessment for all of the championship series. So this would be from flag football to tennis to soccer, and then as well to basketball. So April heads that up. Basically what will happen for each host basketball site is that you will be asked to send a survey out to your participants. Prior to your tournament happening, April will reach out to you and give you all the information you need for that. So she'll give you links to the survey. She will ask you if you have anything specifically you would like to add. So maybe your host site wants to ask how the host hotel was, or you want to ask specifics about the court layout or the timing of games, or any of those sorts of things that maybe don't fall on the assessment already. You'd be able to add those if you would like to. And on top of that, there will be some uniform questions that all the regionals will have. You'll be asked to send some reminders and stuff out as well. In April, right before she stepped up the call, she let me know that if you have any questions or concerns, she's your best bet for assessment to be able to ask any questions, and that she will specifically be reaching out to all of you prior to your tournament. So she'll be able to kind of help you out with that. I know assessment is usually one that a lot of people have questions on. But there is mandated assessment that will come through and more information to come on that. And then now I'll have Scott talk to you guys.
Hi everybody, my name is Scott Flickinger. I'm the Director of Intramural Sports at Cornell University. Conciseness is not my forte, but you know, we'll try anything once. So I'll talk a little bit about brand management and what that's going to entail for your sites. So number one, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media. We will be sending you a handbook for brand management in the upcoming month, so you have an idea of what our policies and recommendations are. If you have any questions about those policies that are in the handbook, we'll also be assigning you a brand management liaison from our work team. Those individuals will be, again, assigned to you in the coming month. If you have questions, like I said, ask them, or you can directly contact me as well. What we're really trying to emphasize is that you are using the NIRSA Championship Series brand moniker or NIRSA Regional Basketball. Please do not use the acronyms NCS or NCCS. Those are old acronyms. We are phasing those out. I know there are some individuals that may have seen those as they've grown up through the NIRSA Championship Series. We are phasing those out. We are getting rid of those. Also, there are some corporations or some organizations that already use those acronyms. We do not want to mix ourselves up with those individuals. Right? We want to stand out as our own entity, that being the NIRSA Championship Series. So please, either use NIRSA Championship Series or NIRSA Regional Basketball. We do have a Twitter and an Instagram account as well. They are both under NIRSA Champ. If you have teams that are excited about coming to your regional tournament, please have them send stuff to the NIRSA Championship Twitter and Instagram accounts. We will also be posting, depending on what kind of participation we get from your regional, we'll be posting pictures and clips and information about your regional as well. If you have any, if you are doing registration and you would like an extra plug from our social media accounts, you can go ahead and email me as well, and we'll set something up to help plug your regional. Our recommended hashtag for your regionals is NIRSABB. So at the minimum, if you want to get our attention over at NIRSA Championship Series, use that hashtag and we can see what is going on. If other teams want to get our attention, that's the hashtag we use for them as well. If you want to send your own hashtag, that's great. My recommendation is that you are talking to perhaps your marketing department in your in either your campus recreation departments or athletics, depending on where you're under, to make sure that you're not using a hashtag that they might be using for one of their other sports or one of their other activities as well. For Facebook, we don't utilize that all that often, but if there are individuals who want to know a little bit more about the NIRSA organization, have them go to facebook.com/NIRSALive. They can go check that out. If you have any questions about any of brand management in general, my contact information is up front there, sf487@cornell.edu. Please feel free to contact me at any time. Please make sure you're using the banners like Megan has said. It's important that, again, we have brand management across the board. We want to show not just campus institutions, but all the individuals involved with campus institutions and the peripherals as well. So that means companies, parents, fans of the participants, fans of students and professional staff that are working there. We want to show that we are a grand organization and that we're more than just competition out there. We have a lot to offer in terms of professional and student development, and we want to make sure that our brand is out there to show that that is what we're using. If you need any of the logos, I do believe they have put the logos online as well. So if you go to play.nirsa.net and go to the basketball site on that website, they should have the logos up for you to download and use. If they're not up there, you can go ahead and either contact Val or Keely, and they'll send you the logos to use as well. Photos and videos. If you have any participants that want to send us photos and videos, that's great. If you yourself have anybody designated to take photos or take videos as well, again, send those photos and videos to us, either to myself, to Keeley or to Val. Make sure you are doing the minimum requirements for marketing. So get those pictures of staff, get the pictures of the championship teams, as well as the 5 action shots as well, so we can do that for our marketing. You can definitely tell your teams that they can participate in this as well, either on Twitter or on Instagram. That's great. Do remind them that whatever they do, all right, it will be seen by other individuals. We have had incidents in the past where students have posted inappropriate things using our hashtag or getting our attention. Do let them know that if we do see that on our feeds, either through Instagram, Twitter, and they're either getting our attention at NIRSA Champ or using the hashtag NIRSABB, we will be contacting their host institute, or excuse me, we will be contacting their institutions and letting them know of what we have seen. All right. So please, if they're out there and they want to participate, that's great. But we want a positive light on this. So have them take pictures and videos that are appropriate for the championship series. Like I said, any questions, you can go ahead and contact myself, or once we assign your liaison, you can contact them as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for helping out.
Thanks, Flick. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about officials. I'm going to start a little bit, and then Ashley Lax is on the call. She's kind of double dipping. She was helping out. She's the chair of club basketball, but she also has been selected to be an assistant director at the national tournament. So she's going to help me talk a little bit through this stuff. But just to start for your officials, and some of these are changes, we will now be requiring that all regionals use the same format for officials applications. It'll be a Google form, so really similar to what we used for the regional staff and for the national staff for that matter. It's going to be a Google form. So those are actually getting edited and updated now. The hope is that if we all use a similar format, it'll help us some consistency about how our officials are selected. Now, outside of that, if you have an additional application that you'd like to use, you certainly can. So maybe you have some supplemental questions that you or your officials director would like to ask. You can. We still want each site to be able to have the ability to select who they want as their officials. But it is something we're trying to do for both football and basketball, is have some consistency in terms of how our officials are applying, and on the flip side, how we are selecting our officials. So those are being edited now and will go live soon. I emailed all host sites last week, and I asked that you let me know the deadline that you'd like to have. It looks like these will hopefully be out by the first week of January, and the deadline is set by each host site. So you get to determine that by site. So if you want to give yourself a month, you can. If you want to give yourself at least, I wouldn't recommend anything less than 2 to 3 weeks just because of travel time for officials. But each host site does do that. About half of you have responded. If you haven't yet, please just reply to my email with information about this webinar, and we will get that updated on both the NIRSA website. We'd like to get that updated before break if possible, and then it'll be on the application as well. Like I said, if you have other things you want to add to officials and how you can select them, you can. Your officials should be selected both by you and by your director of officials as well. We ask that when you are selecting officials, you consider multiple things. How long the people have officiated, if they officiate at other levels, if they officiate on campus still, if they have been to the tournament numerous times, if there are teams that are coming along with them, if there's support staff that are also going to be coming to the tournament with them. There's all kinds of different factors for you to consider as well. And also kind of like the same line as your staff is that you're taking care of your region first. Outside of that, for all officials, there will be a pre-tournament webinar. That will be sent out by the Professional and Student Development Committee. So the link that's on the website right now is outdated. So the new one will be sent out in January. And kind of the same concept, that is an effort to provide consistency for officials and officials committees prior to the tournament. So kind of the same information is covered. Also to allow you to do more things in your clinic at your actual tournament. So some of the stuff that's in the webinar you don't have to cover as much because you covered it in the webinar. So more information will come out via that next year, I guess, in January. So, and then otherwise, I will let Ashley, if you want to jump in on the rest of this stuff.
Yeah, so in terms of how the officials are going to be selected for the national tournament after attending regionals, there has been an outline created last year, and we will be using that outline again this year to determine how regionals will get automatic bids and then how the at-large officials will be selected. So first we'll talk about the automatic bids. Those will be determined based on how many teams you get to your tournament. So as you can see on the slide, if you get fewer than 20 teams, you will only guarantee 2 automatic bids to the national tournament for your officials. If you get under 40, you'll get 3 automatic bids, and then any regional with more than 40 teams will get at least 4 automatic bids for their officials. If your tournament selects an official and they already have an automatic bid, the director of officials at that regional has the opportunity to select the next best official to take that automatic bid. We don't want to give one official 2 automatic bids and then scramble later on to fill their spot for that second spot. So basically, we want the director of officials to send myself, Shane, and John Washoe an email at the conclusion of the tournament. You as the host site will deal with all of the post-event forms, etc., but the director of officials specifically needs to email us and give us top 6 officials at least. Other information is always welcome, so if there are 8 officials that you think could work a national tournament but you only had 4 automatic bids, we want the top 6, and then we want to know those extra 2 that, hey, these people are also capable of working. If you had top 6 but only the top 4 are national quality basketball officials, again, we want to know that information. Other pieces of info that can help with the official selection, if possible, the director of officials or the host site itself uploading video from the semifinal and final games to the YouTube channel that the championship series uses, so that we can review at-large bids and make selections from there. But again, that's mainly for the at-large section, not the automatic bids. I think next slide talks about at-large bids.
I think that's on when we get to the national.
Question. Fantastic.
Perfect, and we're going to talk about the national tournament, and we'll talk a little bit more about officials in that section as well, but we wanted to pause to see if anybody had any questions, and I think you're able to type in and if anybody has anything. And of course, if there's any other questions outside of this webinar, you certainly can feel free to reach out to those resources we've listed so far. But it looks like nobody has anything, so I'm going to go ahead and close that back out. And then, was anybody from Ohio State able to make the call? No, that's fine. So I'll go ahead and chime in about the national tournament. So we did want to make sure all the regional hosts were aware. The regional tournaments are obviously a feeder system into our national tournament, which this year will take place at The Ohio State University. This will be the second year we've hosted the tournament there. It'll run April 21st through the 23rd. So we're excited to host it there for the second year in a row. It was a great tournament last year, and I think as we have it there again, I think we'll get even more and more numbers in. And some of the adjustments from last year, they've taken some feedback from both teams and staff, and they've already in the planning stages to make this another really great event. How to qualify for nationals is that the championship teams from men's and women's divisions from each of your regionals automatically qualify. So once they win your tournament, then they qualify in and they advance. There'll be some, and Ashley talked a little bit about club division as well. There will be a separate club division. We'll offer men's and women's club, men's and women's intramurals, and there'll also be a unified division all at nationals as well. It's still an open format, meaning if you have teams that play in your tournament and they don't win, they could still buy to play in. Even if you have teams that don't play in the regional tournament, they still could pay in. It just basically gives a price difference. So all teams who participated at a regional level can buy in. They get a different price. Those who did not play in a regional can still also buy in. It's just a different price range. And that all will be listed online as well. Information will also be sent to host sites in terms of helping get the word out about the national tournament. Because it is a buy-in tournament, we do want to have other teams obviously participate. So the bonus is for those that win, they automatically qualify. They get the glory of winning your regional. But also beyond that, many of the other teams who participate would be eligible to play in the national tournament as well. Any other questions you have on that, feel free to reach out as well. And more information will come on that. And then Brooke?
Hey everybody, just wanted to give you a little bit of the information that we will be expecting to seed teams and schedule them for the national tournament. So following the tournament, the competition committee will be looking for the winners and runners-up, but we'll also be looking for all the results from every game at the tournament. We compile that into a huge spreadsheet with wins and losses and alphabetize them by teams. So if possible, if you can include not only a team name but the school name or school abbreviation, it helps us get those in a little bit better order. So for instance, NC State travels to multiple tournaments normally, and sometimes they're listed as NC State and sometimes the Aggies, and we try to make sure in our document they're all named the same so we can look at all their opponents. Last year we had over 700 lines of data that we used to seed the teams for the event, as well as looking at the previous national tournaments results. Depending on the number of divisions for each group, we try to seed teams as one that won a regional or their club conference as best we can. The smaller the number of divisions, we may have to, make some adjustments on the fly. So we try to put teams together that haven't played together before. So the more information and the better information we have on that, the more we are able to seed those appropriately for the event. And then on the next slide, if you're using IMLeagues, it's pretty simple. These are just some instructions that you can refer back to. And it's an export. It automatically puts in wins and losses and gives us a score for each game. We'll just go back into that document and put what round they got to in beside the games, so that we're looking, a win in the championship game counts as a little more than a win in pool play, and looking at how their opponents did, so we can all use that to make those decisions. So if you're not using IMLeagues, not a big deal. We're just looking for the scores and knowing what round those games are. We can help code that, but we just need to make sure that we have the brackets and things like that so we can get the information in appropriately. So thanks for our help with that.
And then I'll let Ashley Lax finish out with us with some more information about officials at the national tournament.
Yes, so shown on your slide right now are those that are involved directly with the planning, selecting, and putting on the educational portion of the officials clinic at the national tournament. So Shane, John, and myself, along with the officials committee that is yet to be selected for national staff, will be directly in charge of officials development. But now all of our job really lies in the pre-planning, which is focused on helping you all understand how we pick officials so that that is communicated throughout the process and everyone understands how and where we get these officials from. So in terms of at-large versus automatic bids will be determined based on teams in each of the regional tournaments, and from there we will have a set number of automatic bids for the tournament. The remaining number of spots that we have for total staff will go to at-large officials. So you can see our priority listed here. Priority number 1 will go to automatic bids. The second priority will go to any institutional registrations. Priority number 3 will go to non-NIRSA affiliated tournaments, and then priority number 4 goes to at-large officials applications. As of right now, we only have 1 IR institutional registration, and I believe we only have 1 non-NIRSA affiliated tournament as of right now. So most of the rest of our official selection will come from the at-large officials process. So for all officials, you can see the criteria. They need to be currently enrolled and meet the undergraduate or graduate criteria, same as any player does. They need to have officiated at least 10 intramural basketball games on campus, and again, this should be verified by the campus rec professional. And then officials should have only 1 or 0 years of national tournament experience. Any official that has attended 2 years or more at the national tournament will not be eligible for selection. At-large process. Applications will go live. We encourage all officials to apply, whether or not they receive an at-large bid. If they apply, then we have their application in and can review them. There may also be the circumstance where an official applies to a regional but does not get selected. That doesn't mean that they don't have a shot at the national tournament. They just need to indicate that in their at-large application is that I applied to such and such regional, but they didn't have enough spots or I didn't get selected. Whatever the case may be, again, that information just needs to be included in their application. From our at-large pool, we consider the following 4 criteria: their officiating experience, the different regional representation that we may have already, rankings at their specific regional tournaments, and then any video review that we have access to kind of break any ties that may exist. We will not start at-large officials selections until the day after the very last NIRSA regional has taken place. So all of the at-large will be selected after our automatic bids have been processed.
Perfect, thank you. And then just to follow up, if anyone has any questions, again, either about the national tournament or that is our last slide as well as the webinar. So if you've thought of any other questions that come up, now is the time to just type them out here and we can answer anything that you might have. And it looks like nobody has anything on there, so I know we ran a little bit longer than I had originally said. So, but thank you very much, everybody, for hosting. Really appreciate you putting the time and effort in to have a great experience for both the participants and our student officials and special staff that work there. So remember, there's lots of resources we just went through. We're here to help you. All the panelists that were on the call are also additional resources. This will be posted back online, so anyone who wasn't able to be on the call, you can send this out to as well. If you have any questions beyond that, like I said, all that contact information is listed there and on the NIRSA website. Otherwise, everybody have a great day and happy holidays.